Hey, good morning. Thanks for joining me today. What I'm going to talk about today is something that's kind of been on my heart for a couple of weeks. And in simple terms, it's kind of the motivation that we experience as followers of Christ. And I want to preface this by saying that this message is really geared specifically towards Christians, followers of Christ, people that have been saved by grace through faith. It's not really a message for the outside world. Sometimes I think God puts things on my heart that's a little more evangelical, that maybe He's asking me to share something to reach people. I don't think this is one of those messages. But what I want to talk about is the motivation to do the thing that God has called us to do. We know that God has prepared for us a certain path, and it says that we are to walk in that path. And I think for most of my life as a Christian, I became a follower of Christ when I was 28, and I'm 44 now. So most of that time, I've been motivated by the opportunity to serve God. So that's kind of the first motivation, is the opportunity to be a part of what God's doing. And that's exciting. You know, the creator of the universe has called you out of darkness and given you an opportunity to be a part of what he's doing here on earth, and then to share in that experience on the other side. But the other motivating factor, the second part, is the fear of missing out on the opportunity to serve Christ. And that's what's kind of been on me the last couple of weeks. And I'm going through a study of First Corinthians, and something about it is just resonating, that there are opportunities that I have missed and that I could continue to miss, that I don't want to stand before God and Him say, where were you in that situation? And again, it doesn't impact where I'm going. I've been saved by grace through faith. I know that I'm going to heaven when I leave this world. I have faith in that, and I have security, and nothing can take that away. But He's still going to look at, what did you do with what I gave you? He's going to look at my spirit, and He's talking in spiritual terms when He says that. Spiritually, what did I equip you with? And spiritually, how submissive were you to that call? And did you show up for the opportunity to allow me to work through you to do things? And I think that that piece, that fear of missing it, it's just been heavy on me lately. And part of doing these sermons is to keep me accountable, maybe to share some things that help to keep you accountable. But I think there can be both running at the same time. We can be motivated by the excitement to be a part of God's kingdom and the excitement of what that means, but also be motivated by the fear of missing out. And I think God has called us to do amazing things through His Spirit that He's going to do through us and in us. But we have to show up in order for us to be available for Him to do those things. And if you don't show up, He's going to use somebody else to show up. You know, I used to coach football and other sports, and if you got a kid that doesn't really matter their talent, if they're out there and they're not applying themselves, and they're not committed, and they're not showing up, eventually you're going to replace them. You're going to sub them out. They're still on the team, but they're sitting on the bench. They're not part of the game because they didn't show up for practice or put their time into the gym or just commit to what the team was all about and what the team was doing. So we have that opportunity to miss. In the book of James 4:17, it says, if anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, for them it is a sin. Now, one thing to know about the book of James was written to followers of Christ. He's not talking about the outside world here. So the sin that he's talking about is when you've been saved by grace through faith and God's calling you to do something and you know you're supposed to do it and you don't do it. You don't show up. You don't allow God to do those things that He prepared beforehand that you should walk in them. And that fear of missing it, the fear of inaction, has really been motivating me just more recently. And I think I'm just putting this out there just for you to contemplate on your own in your prayer and meditation, is, you know, to ask God, like, is this world and the distraction and the responsibilities that we all have, is that causing me to miss out on what you're asking me to do? Or on the other side of it, am I using every experience that I have, every position that I'm in, every opportunity that you've granted to me in the time that I have, to proclaim your gospel narrative, to walk in the path that you've set forth? And I don't know what your path is. I don't know what God's called you to do. I know to some degree what He's called me to do. It's an evolving type understanding, but I know what my call is. And I am now tasked with showing up and submitting to that call and being part of it. And I don't want to miss that. And that fear of missing out has been what's messing with me, to be perfectly honest, but it's also motivating me. So the two opportunities to be motivated to go, one is just the sheer joy of being a part of God's kingdom and what He's doing, and two is the fear of missing out on that. And I'll finish with this. I went to funeral service last week of a Christian brother that passed away, and he had eyes for eternity, and he was laser focused on what God was doing through him. He had some physical ailments that kind of highlighted his vulnerability, that his earthly shell was kind of fading, and he knew that eternity was out there. And that, he would tell you, was a blessing because it allowed him to see clearly the time that he had and the calling that was put in front of him. And I think that we, in our comforts and in our responsibilities and our daily affairs, we tend to coast and drift and float through without that kind of focus. And listening to people at this funeral service that were proclaiming the goodness of Jesus and what Jesus did through my friend really highlighted what's going to be important when we leave this world and what really is just going to drop off. And the stuff that we cling to here, none of it's coming with us. But what we do here spiritually, I'm not talking to your physical self here, I'm talking to your spirit. What we allow God to do through us, through your spirit man or your spirit woman, to submit to that calling, that's the stuff that is going to be rewarded when we get to the other side. Or if we miss it, we're going to have that sinking pit in our stomach when we stand before the God that did everything for us, that created, that saved, that called, that equipped. And he said, why didn't you show up, right? I put this opportunity in front of you. Why didn't you show up? So just a call to action right now. Hopefully it resonates with you to some degree. I know it's kind of been heavy on my heart, so I just wanted to share it. And, show up, be there. Let God use you in some capacity and use me in some capacity so that we can proclaim the good news of Jesus Christ, to be a part of his kingdom building effort so that we can go to the ends of the earth and tell people about the good news, the gospel, the message of Jesus Christ. So that's what I got today. Be back soon. Thank you for the time. Take care.